Have you ever gotten to the end of a story and found the most important part missing? Well, that's exactly what happens in the final pages of the Bible. There's this incredible vision of heaven, but one key building is just gone. Today, we're jumping into the mystery of the temple that wasn't there. Okay, so picture this. The book of Revelation ends with this jaw-dropping vision of the New Jerusalem. It's this holy city literally coming down from heaven. We're talking streets of pure gold, gates made of single pearls. It's the ultimate paradise, right? But then, right in the middle of all this perfection, the author points out something that is, well, it's just plain weird. Something huge is missing. You have to understand, for centuries, the temple was everything. It was the absolute center of worship. People believed it was the literal dwelling place of God on earth. So imagine John looking around this perfect, heavenly city, and he says, "I saw no temple?" I mean, what? Why would the ultimate holy city be missing its most important holy building? It just doesn't make any sense. To solve this mystery, we can't just stay in the book of Revelation. We have to go back, way back. The real clues, you see, are hidden in the Old Testament, where the ancient prophets had already started to totally change the game, completely redefining what the word temple even meant. And this brings us to this really cool idea that some call temple consciousness. Now, don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. It just means that over time, the biblical writers started seeing the temple as way more than just a physical building. It wasn't just about stone and gold anymore. The idea began to evolve. It became a symbol for the very presence of God, for his rule over everything. And this is where you see two totally different tracks of thought. On one track, you have the literal expectation, right? A lot of people thought, okay, one day a new physical temple will be built, a building. But on this other track, the prophets were painting a much bigger, wilder picture. They were hinting at something more conceptual, a vision where the idea of temple just keeps expanding. First it's the building, then it's the city, then it's the whole earth, and then something even bigger. All right, so our investigation starts with the prophet Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel is writing at a dark time. The first temple in Jerusalem has been completely destroyed. But he has this incredible vision of what restoration will look like. And let me tell you, it's about way more than just rebuilding a structure. Ezekiel starts describing this restored land, and it sounds a lot like the Garden of Eden. He's talking about a world where lions and lambs hang out, the land is super fruitful, and everyone is safe. You see what he's doing? He's linking the restoration of the city with the restoration of all of creation. The camera is zooming out, big time. We're not just looking at one building anymore, we're looking at the whole world. And if you think that's big, the prophet Isaiah takes it to a whole other level. He's not just talking about a restored city. He basically merges its future with the future of the entire universe. He writes that God will create new heavens and a new earth. For Isaiah, you couldn't separate the two. A new Jerusalem meant a new creation, period. But wait, Isaiah gives us another really important clue. He talks about God laying a precious cornerstone in Zion. You know, the foundation for this whole new reality. And for a long, long time, if you read that, you'd probably think, oh, easy. He's talking about the first stone you lay for a new temple building. But that's not the whole story. There's a twist coming. Okay, so now let's fast forward a few hundred years to the New Testament. And here is the big twist. When Jesus and the apostles talk about this cornerstone prophecy from Isaiah, they do something totally radical. They say, you know that cornerstone? It's not a rock. It's not a piece of a building. They say it's a person, the Messiah. And just like that, bam, the whole definition changes. The foundation for God's new temple isn't stone and mortar anymore. It's a living, breathing person. Just when you think it can't get any more radical, we turn to the prophet Jeremiah. And what he says, honestly, it might be the most shocking clue in this entire mystery. Okay, let's talk about the Ark of the Covenant for a second. This was the most sacred object in the original temple, the Holy of Holies. It was considered the literal throne of God on earth. And Jeremiah comes along and says, you know that ark? In the future, it's going to be gone. And not just gone, it won't be rebuilt, it won't be remembered, and no one will even miss it. I mean, can you imagine? So that leaves us with a huge question, right? If the Ark of the Covenant, God's actual throne on earth, is out of the picture for good, then what on earth could possibly replace it? What becomes the new center of everything? And Jeremiah's answer is just mind-blowing. He says, the replacement for the Ark isn't another fancy box or object. It's the entire city of Jerusalem. The city itself will become the throne of the Lord. Do you see that scale jump again? We went from an object inside the temple to the whole city being the new center of God's presence. All right, we're getting close. The last big pieces of this puzzle come from the prophet Zechariah. And he does something really interesting. He mashes up the idea of the temple with a messianic figure who is somehow both a king and a priest at the same time. So Zechariah has this really weird vision. He sees the high priest getting a king's crown put on his head. Now, that was a big no-no. Those two jobs were always separate. But in this vision, they merge into one person, a figure called the branch. And get this guy is the one who will build the true temple of the Lord. And how's he going to build it? Not by human might, but by God's own spirit. Once again, all signs are pointing away from a physical building and toward a person. Okay, so let's put it all together. Let's trace this whole evolution of temple. It starts as a physical building, right? Then it expands to become the entire city, God's throne. Then it gets personal. It becomes the Messiah, the living cornerstone, and the priest king who builds the real thing. And where does that all lead? To the final step, the ultimate temple isn't a place at all. It's the presence of God and the Lamb themselves. And that brings us right back to our original mystery in the book of Revelation. That missing temple, it's not a mistake. It wasn't an accident, and it definitely doesn't contradict what the Old Testament prophets were saying. Actually, it's the total opposite. It's the perfect logical ending to this whole idea that had been developing for centuries. Think about it. Why would you need a building that symbolizes God's presence when you have, well, God's actual presence? The New Jerusalem doesn't have a temple because the very thing that temple always pointed to has finally fully arrived. So this whole ancient investigation leaves us with a really big, very modern question to think about. If the ultimate destination isn't a sacred place, but a sacred presence, well, it kind of makes you wonder, where do we find that temple in our world today? Some to chew on. Thanks for digging into this with me.